Imagine the temperature outside drops 40 degrees in a single afternoon. The green world you've spent your entire life mapping suddenly vanishes under a crushing blanket of white, and you realize, for the first time in human history, that the sky is trying to kill you. You don't have a North Face jacket, you don't have a thermostat, and the grocery store just migrated 200 miles south or died in a snowdrift. This was the terrifying reality for our ancestors. A brutal, trial-and-error transition from living in nature to surviving a catastrophe that lasted for months every single year. We often picture prehistoric humans as barely sentient cave dwellers shivering on rocks, but the truth is actually much more impressive, slightly more scientific, and honestly, a testament to just how much you can get done when the alternative is becoming a human popsicle. Let's start with the most immediate problem. The floor is lava, but the opposite. In an Ice Age winter, the ground isn't just cold. It's a heat sink that will drain the life out of your body in hours. For 99% of our history, we didn't have beds, but we weren't just flopping down in the dirt. Archaeological evidence from places like Border Cave shows that as far back as 200,000 years ago, humans were already engineering their rest. They weren't just throwing grass on the ground, they were constructing multi-layered sleeping platforms using specific vegetation. And this is the brilliant part, a base layer of ash. Someone, somewhere, through a process of brutal observation, realized that ash isn't just waste from a fire. It's a chemical repellent. It keeps the ticks, mites, and fleas away while you're at your most vulnerable. They were practicing chemistry and pest control before we even had a word for winter. But in the deep cold, even a fancy grass bed isn't enough. This is where thermal physics enters the prehistoric chat. Our ancestors survived by turning the social group into a living insulation system. They slept pressed together, sharing body heat in an enclosed space to raise the ambient temperature. It wasn't about being cozy in the modern sense. It was a biological necessity where the collective was the only thing standing between you and a cold-induced game over. Then there's the calorie problem. During the summer, the world is an all-you-can-eat buffet of fruits, nuts, and easy-to-catch snacks, but winter turns the landscape into a caloric desert. To survive, humans had to shift from logistics to storytelling, which is just a fancy way of saying they had to pass on high-stakes information about where the food went. We know from watching our closest relatives, the chimpanzees, that primates have an innate ability to seek out specific plants for their chemical properties, even if they taste terrible. Chimps will chew bitter pith or swallow rough leaves specifically to scrape parasites from their bodies. Early humans took this biological default and supercharged it through the ability to share information across generations. The first winter medicine wasn't invented in a lab, it was noticed. Someone noticed that chewing on willow bark reduced a fever, or helped with the bone-deep ache of a cold night. They told their children, who told their children, and suddenly you have a medical tradition built on 5,000 years of people chewing on things to see what happened. By the time the Ice Age was in full swing, humans were standing on the shoulders of thousands of years of empirical observation. They knew that honey wasn't just sweet, it was a miracle, antimicrobial, that kept wounds from turning septic in the damp, crowded conditions of a winter shelter. They used garlic and moldy preparations, primitive antibiotics, long before we knew what a bacterium even was. They were empiricists before they were theorists. If it worked, it stayed in the survival manual of the tribe. But even with medicine and beds, you still have to deal with the crushing existential darkness of a winter night. When the sun goes down at 4 p.m. and the temperature plummets, you're not just cold, you're a target. Almost all the major predators of the ancient world, lions, leopards, saber-toothed cats, are most active in the dark. To them, a sleeping human is just slow meat. This is where fire transformed from a tool into a psychological wall. Control of fire, which happened somewhere around 400,000 years ago, changed the entire dynamic of human survival. Fire creates a boundary that predators, who evolved to hunt in total darkness, are biologically wired to avoid. It's an anomaly in their world, a disruption that triggers an ancient alarm in their nervous system saying, "Be careful, don't engage." The campfire became the first security system, but it also became the first classroom. During the day, conversation was about the Monday morning briefing. Who's hunting what, where the water is, how many deer are left. But at night around the fire, the conversation changed to stories. 80% of nighttime campfire conversation in hunter-gatherer societies is storytelling. This wasn't just for entertainment, it was how you programmed the next generation for survival. The stories were the hard drive of human civilization, containing the maps, the warnings, and the moral lessons needed to keep a group functioning when the walls were closing in and the food was running out. The strangest part of this winter survival story, though, is how it changed our actual biology, specifically our sleep. If you've ever woken up at 3 a.m. and felt strangely alert and clear-headed, you aren't broken. You're just experiencing a prehistoric biological rhythm. For most of human history, we didn't sleep in one 8-hour block. We had first sleep and second sleep with a gap in the middle of the night. In the winter, this watch in the night was essential. People would wake up, tend to the fire, check on the infants, and move through the dark streets or shelters like it was perfectly normal, because it was. This gap wasn't insomnia. It was a phase of the night where the body was warm and the mind was clear. It was a time to pray, to think, and to keep the sentinel function of the group active. Evolution selected for groups that had a range of sleep depths. If everyone slept like a log, the group got eaten. Having those lighter sleepers who could go from unconscious to on their feet in seconds was the difference between a community surviving until spring or vanishing in the night. Surviving the first winter wasn't about one lucky guess. It was about the slow, brutal accumulation of knowledge that no single person created, but everyone benefited from. It was the Neanderthal in a cave 60,000 years ago chewing on bitter pith, the ancestor 200,000 years ago spreading ash under their grass bed, and the storyteller around a fire 40,000 years ago explaining how to track a deer through the snow. We survived because we are the only species that decided to engineer our way out of the cold rather than just adapting our bodies to it. We didn't grow thicker fur or hibernate, we developed language, empathy, and a cross-species trust algorithm that allowed us to coexist with the wild rather than just fearing it. We are the descendants of the people who were medically unprotected by our standards, but brilliantly right by theirs. The next time you're shivering between your car and your front door, just remember, you are carrying 10,000 generations of successful winter survival in your DNA. You are a well-designed machine for surviving things that should kill you, supported by a legacy of people who did it the hard way, so that eventually, we wouldn't have to. Winter didn't just test us. It forced us to become the kind of creature that could imagine a way to beat the dark. If you want to see more deep dives into how our ancestors mastered the impossible, hit the subscribe button and let me know in the comments what piece of prehistoric tech we should explore next.